on the phone with us right now is Mayor Bob Buckhorn from.
Oh, the camera you're looking at is Fort Myers.
That's Fort Myers,
we have
not
Mayor
Tampa.
Bob Buckhorn on the phone.
First comes Fort Myers, and then comes Tampa. So the mayor is with us right now from Tampa. Good morning. And what is your situation right now, and what are you telling your people to get them to evacuate if that's what's needed right now?
Well, that's definitely what's needed in a flood zone level A. We have been telling them for 2 days that this storm is coming our way, that it is not an East Coast occurrence, that as usual, these storms have a mind of their own, and this one has decided to come to Tampa. Even though we haven't been hit in 90 years, we train for this all year round. So the extent that anybody can be ready for a storm of this magnitude, I think we are, but it's going to be a long 24 hours for us.
Mr. Mayor, I just wondered, for those of us who know Tampa, and a lot of us do on the East Coast, and we're thinking of all of you and sending you our best wishes, what are some of the give us some ideas of what you think you're facing in terms of flooding, in terms of wind, in terms of damage?
Well, we think we're going to be facing 10 to 11 inches of rain on ground that is already saturated by virtue of the fact that it's summertime and we get those rains every afternoon. We're looking at storm surge, which is really rain what we fear the most, on ground that is already from 5 to 8 feet. Now, the problem is the storm surge will occur at the same time of our high tides. So that will compound the problem for us and for some of our low-lying areas. Our downtown is right on the water, as is Davis Island and Harbor Island, Bayshore Boulevard. So I can expect that parts of those areas will be flooded. The wind is going to be a problem for a couple hours. I mean, we're expecting gusts anywhere from 70 to 100 miles an hour, and that is going to be an issue for some of the houses. And so I anticipate we'll see some property damage as well as a lot of trees down as well.
And Davis Islands and that area is going to be flooding and everything?
We anticipate that. That's all in flood zone level A. That is where I live. My family has evacuated, so I think you will see some flooding in both of those places. I think Bayshore Boulevard will be impassable for a certain period of time until the water drains and the storm moves. The good thing is that this is a relatively quick-moving storm. So unlike Texas and Harvey, where it hovered for a day or two, this storm is going to be, a 6, 7, 8 hour occurrence. But while it's going on, it's going to be something to really watch out for.
Wow.
Yeah, that's almost like the worst case scenario, but of course we wish you the best of luck
Godspeed,
as you
Mayor.
guys go through this.
And to everyone in Tampa,
thank you for joining us. Bob Buckhorn, the mayor of Tampa. Right now, let's get back to Alyssa Hyman. You saw just a few moments ago how treacherous those conditions were right there.
Alyssa,
all right, well, we are just getting pelted here in Fort Pierce. You can obviously see these winds and the rain just pelting us. We are standing in about 1.5 feet of water here in Fort Pierce. This is the intersection of Virginia Avenue and Oleander Avenue. Obviously, you can see just the standing water that's here in this intersection. And if you look over here, this is what we're dealing with. We've got cars just stuck in the water. And I do believe that the water has gotten higher since we've been out here. Obviously, this car not going anywhere. We've seen some tow trucks out here trying to help, but at this point, it doesn't look like these cars are moving. Obviously, first responders coming out here a lot. There's 2 cars over here that are stranded. We saw the owner of this car come out here, try to get it moving, but at this point, they're not getting it anywhere. And you can just see these bands that we're feeling right now. They're extremely strong. You've heard Glenn talking about it, the winds, the rain, and obviously just pushing this flood water. This is west. We're hearing from the county at least 20 streets or intersections seeing this kind of flooding. We're seeing cars drive up to this intersection, seeing what's going on, having to turn around, make a U-turn, realizing it's just not safe to pass. You can see we've got some first responders out here. These are the only people that should be on the road. I'm going to turn a little bit to the side so it's not as strong, but this is what's going on out here in Fort Pierce. You thought the track of the storm is west, but we are still feeling it, and we are still feeling it very strong. This is a message to everybody out there to stay home. It is not safe out here on the roads. You don't know how deep these waters are, and it could be very dangerous. Look at these stranded cars. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
A real beating this morning. Thank you for showing us what so many people were Facebooking us about when we were doing a live hit that Oleander, Virginia was swamped. And since you've been out there, we have seen the water rise. We've seen the wind get worse. And I'm so glad she's getting to safety and getting into the middle of the median there, because it is nasty. This is Fort Pierce. But this is what all of us are likely to face throughout the day today, is these rain bands and the wind gusts move in. You saw Glenn just a few moments ago showing us basically wind gusts that are hurricane force, not sustained, but they are gusts, which means the sustained winds will probably be strong tropical storm.
But as I'm watching her, I'm just mesmerized by it. And you know, you hate to say the word stupidity of somebody trying to get through there. I mean, they're supposed to, you know, stay home. And that is exactly what can happen. You know, she's painting the picture for you and letting you see it at home in the comfort of your home. And it's treacherous, and that's what can happen. That's why we get upset when we hear people say, oh, it's only a Category 1, it's only a tropical storm. Look at that situation, and you can see how bad it can get.
Well, just keep in mind as you look at these live pictures, all of this is what we're all going to be experiencing. If you're looking out now, and I mean, I'm hearing from some folks in Wellington, everything's okay. That's fine. A lot of them don't have power, but look at these trying to get through. We're just going to take a look at Alyssa in Fort Pierce. But that's the flooding we can all experience. Those are the winds, and even stronger winds than this, stronger bands than this. It might not be just rain. It might be, as you can see, the very severe weather conditions that are embedded into these bands as they're coming in. So that's why we're asking you to please, you've got your supplies. We've been preparing for this together all week, and now here it is. So we knew we were going to have to stay in the house. We knew it was going to be a long haul, but that's why we're going to stay with you and keep you updated and show you what's outside, so you don't have to go outside.
And, you know, the ground is already saturated. So, you know, as we've mentioned many times, it's like having a sponge and pouring more water on it. No place for it to go, so it just stays right there. And that's seemingly what's happening there. The mayor of Tampa said the same thing. You know, they've had a lot of rain, they're saturated, and now they're going to get a storm surge. They've got more rain, and they're preparing for the worst.
And you know, we've had these flooding situations before. Well, we've had flooding situations, period, and it's serious stuff. And this is why you want to stay in, because you can suddenly hit some deep standing water, and all of a sudden you become a statistic, and we don't want that. And even with some of these strong storms that are embedded, there could be some very severe weather, maybe even we've had tornado warnings this morning. So we want you to have that safe room ready. We want you to be ready to please keep everything charged while you have your power, for those of you who still do. So when you get into your safe room, you can either watch us on our website, WPTV.com, stay with us on some of our Facebook feeds, or watch us on our app. Please.
As we're talking, you see different pictures. This is out of Miami, WPLG, and those situations are rough right there, but it's not too different from what we see.
No.
Alyssa's report. So it's probably 150 miles difference, and the storm is that big and that powerful, and those outer bands come around, whipping around from a 500-mile wide storm. You see how significant that situation is.
We have
it's
reporters
treacherous.
all over the state keeping us up to date with everything that is happening to them where they are located. Of course, we've got the entire storm team here to give you the most accurate tracking on Irma. We'll be here to keep you reminded of any emergencies, anything you need to know about while you stay inside. We are going. Oh, well, we thought we were going to go to a quick break, but here's Tori Dunnan in Boynton Beach. So, Tori, what do you have for us?
Hey, I'll tell you guys, we are here in Boynton Beach. This is right near this restaurant, which is called Two Georges. As you can tell, it's gotten really bad out there. If you take a look outside, wind gusts are really strong here. You see it in the trees. This is on some sort of waterway where there are boats as well. Wind gusts are pretty strong, hard to stand as well. Brian, if you can show them what it looks like here, trying to stand up against this wind. And we're actually inside of a parking structure right now, so there you go. Things are serious here in Boynton Beach. We definitely had to get out of the main area there, though, because we didn't feel like it was necessarily the safest location, but Wind gusts picking up big time in Boynton Beach as the weather is moving through. This is the strongest by far that we have seen this morning. And we've been up and down the coastline from Jupiter to Juno Beach here to Boynton Beach, West Palm Beach in between. Okay, we got a little break from the wind there, but you can tell how bad it's getting down here in Boynton Beach. And we're inside the structure, so we'll send it back to you guys for a second.
Well, Two Georges
so we can regroup and
all right.
Go from there.
Please stay safe,
Thank you, Tori.
Two
Wow.
Georges, 2 restaurants right there on the Intercoastal Waterway, Boynton Beach, and then you've got Ocean Ridge, and then you've got the ocean. You've got the Ocean Road. There was that just little 2-lane road there by Briny Breezes.
Right.
That's kind of that location. You go Two Georges, the Intercoastal, then you've got Ocean Ridge, then you've got Briny Breezes. That whole area is where she is, and I'm sure the water is just popping up over the ICW right now. You really want to go out in this? No, you don't. Please stay safe.
Those are tropical storm force winds, and boy, it's whipping everything around throughout the East Coast, so you can imagine what they're going to get on the West Coast as well.
And quote, that's a tropical storm force wind. You don't want to be out in it. We're going to take a quick time out now. We'll be back on the other side of the break and keep you up to date with more information. Once again, reporters all over the state so we can track this storm together. We'll be right back.
Andy said, let's take you soon. I'm like, we're ready. After the break.
Yeah, that's what I got a text saying. But they said months. What happened to me and Molly for like half an hour? Okay, you're next. Okay,
Oh, yesterday. So yesterday.
It is 8:25 on this Sunday morning as we continue our special coverage of Hurricane Irma, and we're glad you're spending some time with us as we are riding this out together. And we have crews all over the state following Hurricane Irma as we do keep a close eye on this. And conditions in West Palm Beach at this moment are starting to get a little bit worse.
We saw Tori in Boynton Beach and Alyssa up on the Treasure Coast, and now Sam Smink is joining us live from right outside our studio. How are things looking? Calm in relative comparison to them, but a little breezy behind you, Sam.
John and Roxanne, I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind is now starting to pick up and actually howl. And about 10 minutes ago, we had to shut the WPTV door because the wind just did a sharp burst and it went right up to the ceiling, and some ceiling tiles had fallen earlier, and now it was starting to shake the ceiling once again. We're going to give you a look at the trees. That's kind of our best look at how the wind is picking up right now. It comes in bursts. So what happens is it'll pick up now for about 20 seconds. It'll stop. It'll be calm, but it'll pick back up again. It is starting to drizzle out there, and when the wind does pick up, it gets really strong and it gets diagonal and it goes right into our faces here on the balcony. We're looking at the flag right now that is in downtown West Palm Beach. That's a good indicator of how the wind is moving. It's moving toward the water over here, and the water actually has waves. We're looking at the courthouse. We're looking at downtown West Palm Beach. It's not a good idea to be out here because of the way the wind is bursting. It almost feels like it's going to knock you off your feet for about 20 seconds, and then it comes down once again. But it's not something to mess with. I at one point had to grab onto the balcony because I felt that strongly, the strong push, and it's starting to howl out here.
All right, Sam. Thanks. Yeah, stay safe. Stay safe indeed.
Let's go back to the Treasure Coast. Indian River County is holding a news conference there, updating the situation there. So let's listen in. It's already in progress.
Reports from deputies who are out there. There have been isolated intersections that have lost power. People are not treating those as four-way stops. Please, when you get there, be very safe, be very cautious. There are still many people out on the road for the storm that we are experiencing right now. As County Administrator Jason Baird just said, noontime we are closing those bridges. You have a very limited time to get where you're going at this point. Road travel should be shutting down. You should be getting to shelters. We are under a mandatory evacuation. If there's anybody out there that was making their way back from the West Coast, you have until noontime to be back here. So things are going to start closing down very soon, so please be careful in your travels. Let's get where we're going. Let's get safe. Law enforcement will get pulled in at some point. First responders will get pulled in at some point today. So you've got to be where you're going to be. Get to your shelter. Get to your safe place. This is a very serious storm. Please take it seriously. Thank you.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Rector, soy administradora del Servicio de Emergencias del Condado de Indian River. Le queremos recordar que el Condado de Indian River todavía se encuentra bajo una advertencia de huracán y también nos encontramos bajo una vigilancia de inundaciones. El huracán Irma en este momento es uno de categoría 4 y se encuentra cruzando los Cayos. Este llegará al suroeste de la Florida esta tarde. El área de Fort Pierce ya ha recibido de 8 a 12 pulgadas de lluvia. Y pronosticamos que vamos a tener de 8 a 12 pulgadas de lluvia en esta área y podríamos tener de 15 a 18 pulgadas de lluvia en áreas específicas.
Oh, okay. Looks like we are going straight to weather. Let's talk about it. Keeping an eye on Irma. You see it here. You can see the eye clearly about to make landfall in the Keys, the lower Keys here. It is getting closer and closer. The official landfall not until the eye passes over. But as you can see here, Irma will be making landfall in the Keys as a Category 4 storm. We'll take a little bit of a closer look here. You see it here, Big Pine, Cudjoe Key, very, very close to that eye making landfall. You're starting to see some of it in the eye, so I'd be willing to bet some of this could be classified as that eye actually making landfall. Still, as a very strong Category 4 hurricane. We consider this a major hurricane. Winds at 130 miles per hour, moving now north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. So we are starting to see that more of a northerly trajectory where it has been west or west-northwest or even northwest, now north-northwest. And this is when we're going to start to see those impacts moving toward the Florida Peninsula. I wanted to show you this, though. This is the historical line of the center of Irma, and you can see how it's bounced around, and that's why we say it can make a big difference just by a couple miles. Glenn?
Flood warning, northwestern Palm Beach County until 8:30.
Okay, so we have just had a flood warning for northwestern Palm Beach County issued, and you see why here. A flood watch in effect for the entire area, tornado watch, but we've been seeing some flood warnings as well, and you're going to start to see those popping up even more as this rain continues to fall. Just look at the sheer expanse of this storm stretching all the way from rain being still down in Cuba all the way up into Georgia at this point. Almost our whole state is covered in rain at this point, and not just light rain, but some heavy rain as well. Tropical storm winds still stretching more than 200 miles from the center. You see that here. So our entire area in the possibility of seeing some tropical storm force winds. Hurricane winds, force winds still stretching 80 miles from the center. Those are winds 74 miles per hour or more. And that is stretching up into the southern tip of Florida now. A wider view of our area down into the Keys shows it's nonstop rain. Not only is it rain, but it's very gusty winds and on and off tornadoes popping up. And this is why we were saying don't let your guard down yet. We've had several tornado warnings already this morning, and that is going to continue. We are being impacted by two very intense bands right now. We've got this particular band that's getting ready to move into Indian River County, currently over Fort Pierce. Fort Pierce has been hit so hard already. This band has traveled through almost our entire viewing area. It brought tornado warnings to Palm Beach County earlier, and you see how quick it's moving. We also have another pretty intense band moving through Palm Beach County right now. So I want to take you county by county. So if you're watching or listening, you know exactly what conditions are like where you are. Right now, we do have some heavy rain getting ready to move into Indian River County, but for the most part along the coast from Sebastian through Florida Ridge, you're getting a break from that very, very heavy rain. And right now you're getting some light rain, but this band of intense rain, lightning, gusty winds that is currently moving through northern St. Lucie County, impacting Fort Pierce, the FPL power plant up into Lakewood Park, going to continue moving north, and they don't need any more rain. They've already seen so much. We'll take a look at those rainfall totals in just a second. And you see it here. This band moved through Okeechobee, now starting to push out of the northern reaches of Okeechobee County. Martin County, you're getting mostly a break from the heavy rain, but I am starting to see some heavier rain move in along the coast near Stewart, Heritage Ridge, North Passage. And then here's this other intense rain band that's impacting our area right now. Belglade through Lion Country Safari out to West Palm Beach, down into Boynton Beach. That's likely what you were just seeing Tori stuck in if you were watching and you were seeing her encounter those very intense winds. This is the band that was just moving through the Boynton Beach area. It's moving north toward West Palm Beach, so you can see here really being impacted by some of those strong bands. Glenn?
64-mile-per-hour wind gusts, St. Lucie
Glenn saying we've seen a 64-mile-per-hour wind gusts in St. Lucie County. That's tropical storm force, strong tropical storm force. So we've been seeing these tropical storm force wind gusts all morning. Winds sustained in some portions of the area as high as 40 miles per hour or more. So it is very windy out there. We're starting to see rainfall totals pick up across the entire area. Initially, we were only seeing these very high rainfall totals in St. Lucie County, but they have spread into Indian River County, and several inches of rain has fallen in Palm Beach County as well. We're talking already 4, 5, 6 inches of rain, with the exception of St. Lucie and Indian River County, where we've seen even more. Now, I'll tell you, I put these markers on probably about 15 minutes ago, so I'd be willing to say at this point in St. Lucie County, they've probably seen nearly a foot of rain, especially with that other very intense band moving over. And these very high rainfall totals are stretching up into Indian River County. So St. Lucie Village, Fort Pierce, Florida Ridge, Lakewood Park, you're all seeing these very high rainfall totals, and flooding is going to be a big concern. Not only flooding as a concern, but also we have a tornado watch going on for our entire area right now. I'm not sure if we're getting maybe a power surge or what we're getting, but you may notice that some of the lights are going a little darker here in the studio, and that is because I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe we are getting some power surges causing our power to kind of blink on and off a little bit. There we go. I think my light's back. So I'll keep talking as long as we're still up. I'll keep talking. This is what's going on. We've got very gusty winds already beginning to impact us, but we're going to continue to see these gusty winds, and it's just going to pick up. It's just going to get worse from here, guys. So you see it here. I believe what we're looking at over here, correct me if I'm wrong, that's downtown West Palm Beach. Producer, is that right? Downtown West Palm Beach? I believe that's what I'm looking at. Yes. So you can see things are going to continue picking up throughout the day today. Very heavy rain as Irma starts to push farther north. Now, I want to urge you, this model is not a tropical forecasting model, so don't pay attention to where it's putting the center of Irma. Just pay attention to these very intense rain bands that will continue to move throughout the rest of the day into tonight. You're looking at this is Monday morning, and we've still got that rain moving around and still the very gusty winds. Glenn, walking. 82 mile per hour wind gusts in Miami. So that is hurricane force wind gusts in Miami as Irma is still down in the Florida Keys. So you can see these wind gusts really starting to pick up, and Irma's still at least, I'd say at least probably 90 to 100 miles from Miami at this point. Going to continue on that trajectory toward the west coast of Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. This line represents Sunday at 2 p.m. So nearing Fort Myers later Sunday afternoon, later this afternoon into Sunday night. So we'll certainly begin to see our weather picking up later this afternoon, but it's going to continue to pick up as this center of Irma travels along the predicted path. And this is why we're seeing, especially places that are a little bit farther west, like inland Palm Beach County and Okeechobee, you're going to start to see worse conditions than along the coast because you're going to be closer to the eye, but it's going to be bad for everyone. Even though we're not in this cone, we're still seeing the impacts, and you can see it here. Look at the way that camera is shaking around, and we are still hours and hours away from the eye being at its closest point to us. Look at this. That camera is just absolutely unsteady, shaking. This is from Palm Beach International Airport. So the rain is so heavy, the wind's so intense that the camera is just shaking around. It can't even be held steady. This storm is just really not a storm that you want to play with. And even though we are not in the cone any longer, you can see why we've been urging you to keep up those shutters, stay vigilant, don't let your guard down. So still forecast to remain a Category 3 hurricane as it moves along the west coast of Florida near Tampa by late tonight, early Monday morning, possibly making, if it moves off the water and then making possibly another landfall somewhere in the Big Bend area of Florida. Moving north into Georgia, possibly still as a Category 1 hurricane throughout the Monday afternoon into very early Tuesday night. And then the forecast is for Irma to curve around, impacting Montgomery and Huntsville, Alabama, possibly impacting places like Memphis all the way up into Tennessee. And then you can see it here continuing as that center of low pressure. So this storm is going to have impacts that are going to be felt far and wide for a good portion of the country, but definitely here in South Florida. The impact weather for us, wind and flooding rain, the highest impacts that we're going to feel here, and you're seeing that. You could look at that picture right here. You could look at the live cam and see that wind and flooding rain going to be a big issue for us. For those of you that are just listening, what we're seeing from this live camera looking out over the Intracoastal and downtown West Palm Beach, you're seeing blowing trees, very intensely blowing trees, very, very little visibility out over the Intracoastal because there's so much rain and the wind is blowing it. And so it really just looks like a gray sky. It would almost be as if what you were seeing if you had really intense fog, but it's rain, and the rain is coming down very strongly. Storm surge, also a small possibility. And then, of course, the tornado threat that we've been seeing all morning. Look at some of these max wind gusts, 61 mile per hour gusts recorded from this particular data collecting station in West Palm Beach, 45 miles per hour in Vero Beach. If we could go ahead and take this full, because some of these numbers on this graphic, thank you, are a little hard to see. Let's time it out for you. This is the European model. This model actually has been a little bit more conservative with its forecast than even the American model, and me calling these numbers conservative will tell a lot about the forecast here. So here's this afternoon at 4:30, 75 mile per hour wind gusts possible in Okeechobee and Belglade, 80 mile per hour wind gusts in Boca Raton possibly. But take a look at this as we head into the nighttime hours, and the center of circulation is a little bit at its closest point to our viewing area late this evening into the early nighttime hours. 90 mile per hour wind gusts are possible in Okeechobee and Belglade, 73 mile per hour wind gusts along the coast. And then this is going to continue into the early Monday morning hours. Still very gusty winds, 70 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. And then we finally start to see things calming down Monday afternoon, but even Monday morning we'll still be dealing with a lot of those wind issues. What you're seeing here is a representation from the National Hurricane Center, the wind field that Irma could produce. Obviously the highest winds will be along the west coast, Fort Myers, Sarasota area. But you can see here, even in our area, as we head into the evening, we're starting to get into those higher wind gusts between 58 and 74 miles per hour, and that's going to continue throughout the overnight. So we're talking about hours and hours and hours of these winds and this rain, and that's why flooding is going to be a problem. That's why you're going to start to see power outages as well, because what's going to happen is the ground's going to get saturated, the trees are going to be able to blow easier, and some of those trees, palm trees are kind of a little bit more made for some of this, but some of those trees that aren't palm trees, maybe some of those big trees with the big limbs could start to blow over and start taking out some of the electricity, some of the power poles. So we could have some power outages and things like that with the wind and the rain lasting this long. You see it here, pretty much a very high chance for all of our area to see tropical storm force winds. We're already seeing that. Hurricane force winds, though, a little bit less likely, mainly along the west coast. Today is the peak day, and things will continue to worsen as we head throughout the day today. Storm surge and a tornado threat certainly possible. Mainly tropical storm conditions, but possibly hurricane force gusts. And then tonight, early tonight, the peak conditions continue. Tropical storm conditions like we're seeing in hurricane force gusts, with tornadoes and local flooding threat becoming even more probable. Monday, Irma will be exiting to the north. The winds, though, will remain gusty, and we'll have scattered rainfall and rough seas. I believe, I'm not sure where this drive cam is from right now. Where are we seeing this from? Key West. Okay, so this is a drive cam from Key West. So for now, I'm not sure if we want to take the drive cam or send it back to the anchors, but I will go ahead and do that, and then we'll have the latest update, the 9 a.m. update on Irma coming out very shortly, and Glenn and I will have that for you.
Well, just to piggyback back onto what Felicia was showing us with that camera, I was asking Glenn where the storm was right now, and this is the very latest. I just wanted to see the Key West, the landfall. It's about ready, isn't it?
It's pretty close. It looks like it's making landfall between Key West there and Big Pine Key there at the eye, moving over some of those lower keys there. So I'll wait for the official word. We'll wait for the official word from the National Hurricane Center, but it's very, very close to its first landfall. And then the second landfall would be if it makes landfall on the west coast of Florida there. So we're keeping our eyes on it.
The eye actually makes landfall?
Yeah. Once the eye moves over land, then it's an official landfall there. So it's very, very close right now.
Between Big Pine, Cudjoe Key, Summerland, or reverse
yeah,
that,
they're all clustered together right there.
Together. So this is
and right now that's 130 miles an hour?
Category 4, 130 mile an hour winds.
You know, they stayed in the Hemingway house. A couple people, friends, actually tweeted me and asked about the Hemingway. Some of the staff stayed with the kitty. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that everyone who decided to stick it out is there. Now, we were in Boynton Beach with Tori along the Intercoastal Waterway, and she was getting
last time we saw her, she was getting whipped around
tortured.
Pretty good.
So here she is again.
Let's see if it's changed any at all.
Any better? Tori, good morning.
Hey, guys. Well, I'll show you the situation. It's a bit better, obviously, than it was when you came to us before. We were really getting hit hard with that wind and the rains and the feeder bands. If you take a look here, though, it is not calm by any means out here. The trees still blowing like crazy here, signs moving back and forth. We're here inside a structure to be a little bit safer, but you can see they're definitely still getting hit here in Boynton Beach with some heavy weather. I spoke to a man who's here, and he's checking on everything throughout the day, and he said what you guys witnessed in that last live shot was the worst. That's the guy actually I just spoke to. Was the worst of the weather that they have seen here in Boynton Beach so far this morning. But we're right near this marina area where there are boats parked and a lot of restaurants and stuff like that. But really, this is completely different than it was just a few minutes ago. So we're starting to see kind of a shift in it, but I'm not sure when it's going to ramp up again, obviously. We'll send it back to you.
All right. Well, yeah, at any moment it can happen. The winds just whip up, and last time that we saw you, Tori, you were getting whipped around pretty good. This time it looks like you're a little more stable there, but please be careful while you're out there.
I think all these pictures from Tori and our other reporters, Alyssa, are examples of what we heard from Indian River County in the news conference we just dipped into, where he was saying we want everybody, noon is really the cutoff. They want to shut it down by then, and then get everybody off the roads. But you can see already why they want that with the flooding on Oleander and Virginia throughout Fort Pierce. But that was an example of just the depth of the water, and Alyssa getting just pummeled with the wind that was coming in. Tori again, and so that's a big part of our viewing area. So we're just all going to be experiencing that. And you heard Felicia say this is hours to come. So it's tough. We're not used to just sitting and relaxing and taking it easy and doing nothing, and especially when there's some nerves attached to it. But this is the day you just got to do it. Just stay with us and I don't know, stick it out with us for the day. I was going to say, count how many times we say hunker down if you've got to pass the time or
whatever
something.
it takes, but
stay in your
get
safe
to where
room
you're
and-
going. If you don't feel like your place is a good place, a good stable place, get to where you're going and do it fast. Do it by noon, because those conditions are getting treacherous and they're breaking down quickly.
Look at the white caps on the Intercoastal in West Palm Beach. And then if we go back to PBIA, you just saw that camera. I don't know if you all can pop that up again in the control room, but PBIA, not only is it a virtual ghost town at this point, but I mean the cameras, it's just so windy. These gusts of wind are strong tropical storm force winds right now. There's PBIA. Look at, I mean, not only is it unusual to see the airport without an airplane, there's not a private aircraft there, there's not a commercial aircraft there.
Yeah.
It's a ghost town.
They've gotten them
bare
out of
bones
there.
employees,
Yeah.
but the wind, and this is why they don't want anything there at this point.
As you can imagine, there is extensive damage, a bunch of trees down throughout our entire viewing area.
News Channel 5's Andrew Ruiz is in Boca Raton.
We're in front of the Polo Club on Military Trail, and there's a tree that toppled over the fence, and this is Military Trail, so it's blocking the roadway. Come over here so I could show you some of the efforts that firefighters made in order to try to remove it. Seems from the markings that they've actually tried to chainsaw it. You can see the cuts right over here. But again, the tree is so massive that pretty much unsuccessful in trying to move this, especially with the high wind gusts that you could experience here, the tornado warnings that have been announced here in our area. And again, the tree was in this yard, and then it just so powerful, weighs so much that it took out this concrete fence. Luckily, this house is boarded up. But again, it's going to be a while before they can actually get to this tree again, cut it all up, and remove it so that this part of this northbound lane of Military Trail be reopened. Back to you guys.
All right, Andrew. Wow, it's a shame about the house, about the tree, and as we were talking about my trees, my oak trees in front of my house, that was my big concern. As 140 miles an hour was heading to the east side, but you can see even when the storm isn't here, what can happen and how it can knock down a tree that's been around obviously for dozens
a long
of
time.
years.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's another reason you just don't want to be out. A branch can be
Anything
flying
can
across.
happen
So
like
just,
that, exactly.
Let's stay inside,
Scary.
stick it out together here if we can. We're going to take a quick break. You take a look at the camera. This is the drive cam. Yep, this. If you look at this, we automatically knew this was headed into the Keys. It might be Cardstown Road. There you go, heading into the Keys. Be careful. Stay home. Stay with us. We'll ride this thing out together, and we're all going to be safe. We're prepared, aren't we? We'll be right back on WPTV.
9 before 9 now as we continue our coverage of Hurricane Irma. And some of the major flooding we've seen is in the Fort Pierce area.
WPTV News Channel 5, Alyssa Hyman is joining us once again with some important information from Florida Highway Patrol.
First of all, just describe what you've been seeing for us here in St. Lucie County.
We've been having some flooding through the city area. The interstate has some pockets of water, standing water, and it's been pretty much not that much traffic out there, but we're asking people not to be on the roadway and so forth till the storm passes all the way through. Even though this storm is on the western side of the state, is still huge and large, about the size of Texas. And what we're doing, we're getting the rain dance. For everyone's safety, we ask everybody to buckle down and be at a shelter, stay at home, or somewhere safe, and just stay off the roads until this clears.
What are your guys out here doing today? I mean, are they just checking on people, checking on the roads?
Yeah, we're checking on roads, checking on people, make everyone safe, and that if someone is in, if it's an emergency, that they're able to get help to them.
Are you seeing a lot of cars stalled out? Are you seeing a lot of people stuck? I mean, are they calling for help?
Not that much. It's only a few, just a few.
And how many deputies or troopers, I'm sorry, do you think you have on the road right now?
Quite a few, yeah, quite a few.
All right, and what are you guys doing to keep yourselves safe?
What we're doing is once we go back in, we'll go back into a secure location, and once we are able to come back out. If need be, we'll respond if we have to.
Is this some of the worst, at least for the area that you've seen, or have you seen it get worse here?
Right now, this is so far has been the worst right now.
How long have you worked in this area?
20 years.
So this has been the worst you've seen in 20 years?
It's been the worst 20 years, yes.
Anything else that you want to get across?
No, please, for everyone's safety, please stay home, buckle down, and wait till the storm passes. I know there's a lot of anxiety for family members and also for your property and to see what's out here. But we ask you just to stay home, and you'll be able to see it. There's YouTube, there's other social media that you'll be able to view this after the storm is passed. But for your safety, please, in the name of God, just stay home and be safe.
Acabando de levantarme.
I'm sorry, I had to stand.
Con el DAA,
Very nice of them to stay
Desperate
there.
plea, though, to
Right.
please stay home. They do not want to have to rescue you, too. They've got enough to do with this flooding.
In his 20 years, I'm sure he's seen a lot of storms, and this one has to compare right up there with some of the big bad ones that we've seen over the years. And this is just the beginning of it. So treacherous conditions out there. Stay home unless you have to get to safety. If you feel like your situation is compromised where you are and you need to get to a shelter, do it, but do it soon. It's almost 9 o'clock now. Do it before noon.
And I'm getting a lot of information from my Wellington friends about the power outages there, but suffice it to say at this point, they are widespread. Let's check in with Holly for a look at just how bad it is.
Guys, power outages, the big story right now, aside from the bad weather out there. Let's start in Palm Beach County. At this point, we have almost about 104,000 outages. We started the morning off with about 20, so that kind of puts that into perspective. Okeechobee County, about 70 outages there. Let's see if we could go to St. Lucie County, 1,100 right there. And let's see what else we have. Just a few more we'll play around with here. I can tell you, though, these things are changing by the minute. That's not working, but we are keeping tabs on things. Again, we are on our app. Make sure you download that before you lose power. The WPTV app, you can follow us minute by minute. Wish I had my phone to do a little show and tell here, but we are broadcasting that information there over on our app, so you can follow us along. If you do lose power, we'll continue to monitor these numbers as they come in, but we are, Roxanne and John, seeing these change. Very fluid right now.
Well, and yeah, when we talked to Colony first thing in the morning, it was maybe 20-some thousand. Then it jumped up when we did a Facebook Live. It was 56, and now it's almost doubled from that. So no doubt throughout the day and afternoon, it will continue to go up. Sadly, that is most likely the way it's going to trend. But FPL, as long as they can be out working, they will mobilize and then continue to track where they've got problems
So
to
we
fix.
see how bad and how quickly that the weather is deteriorating, and they won't go out there to fix it until those winds subside. Preparations are underway in one of the mandatory evacuation zones in the Tampa area.
Let's go to Kamasi Aaron, who is with our affiliate in Tampa, to show us more on how people are preparing.
This hotel is within walking distance of Tampa Bay, and that means everyone here is taking Irma very seriously. This hotel is in a mandatory evacuation zone, and as you can see, they have the doors taped, the windows taped, and they have this letter here letting people know, hey, this is a mandatory evacuation zone. And this personal note from the general manager highly suggesting that guests evacuate, saying the best course of action is to head north or to find a local shelter. Despite this warning, though, there are still a lot of people who are deciding to ride out Irma in this hotel. And so the hotel is trying to make sure that it is as safe as possible for the people who have decided to stay. So in addition to seeing the tape on these windows, if you come down here a little bit further, you'll see they have the floodgates up. So no one has been able to come back to this area where normally there's conference rooms and people are all back here. But this is blocked off, as well as another floodgate blocking off this employee staff entrance as well. As I said, a lot of people still planning to hunker down here, and this is the area where people have been coming to eat. The hotel staff has still been providing at least dinner, and they plan to provide breakfast and all kinds of meals throughout the course of this storm. It was full yesterday. We were down here around dinner time. This was full of people here riding out the storm. And the hotel staff has made it very clear, if you're going to stay here, you have to come to a mandatory meeting. It's at noon today. And at that point, you have to sign a waiver saying that you know you're in a mandatory evacuation zone. And they also are going over a lot of details, what to know when Irma does come through by this hotel, things about the elevators, the stairwells, the generators, what kind of services will be available. There is a second floor safe room if you need to go there. So at noon, the lobby will be full of all the people who are deciding to ride out the storm here. Hopefully everyone will be safe and take all the precautions that the hotel has laid out for everyone. Of course, we'll keep you updated on what it looks like as the storm moves in. Back to you.
Well, they're pretty brave, I think, because right outside that door is the Riverwalk in Tampa. By the convention center, you walk down to the convention center, a couple of restaurants. I mean, that's the Marriott right on the river.
You know, what's interesting in that shot is that when we spoke to the mayor a little while ago, he said it had been, 90 years since they had a hurricane there, and you saw the tape on the windows and the doors and all that, and that does no good. So you can tell they're a little out of practice, because if you don't shutter up and if you don't have impact-resistant glass, that tape isn't going to do you any good.
No, the tape isn't going to do you any good, and I hope being in that hotel is good for those folks in a mandatory evacuation zone. That's just not what you want to do, and yet you've got to almost give props to the hotel staff to say, well, we've got people who are stuck here, they can't get out, what are we going to do? Be good neighbors or say you're on your own?
No, you've got to be a good neighbor.
They want to be a good neighbor, and that's what they're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Hey, not often you see white caps on the Intracoastal in West Palm Beach, is it?
It's a very windy day out there. Situation, look, where's this at? Singer Island, white caps there. I mean, it's really beginning to break down quickly, and there's the scene in downtown West Palm Beach. A lot of rain. The wind is kicking up. The wind gusts are really kicking up. We've seen, whether it's in Boynton Beach or whether it's in Fort Pierce, the wind is really, really strong, knocking our reporters around.
Just as we talk, can we get the PBI camera up just to show them the wind as we send things over to Glenn and Felicia? Look at that. I mean, the wind is gusting, wet, miserable. It's a ghost town at PBIA.
And empty at the airport,
and we hope it's a ghost town, too, on Southern to the south of the airport, Belvedere to the north, as well as on 95 to the east. Felicia, you going to take it for us?
Actually, Glenn is going to take it for us.
Oh, okay. I saw Felicia now.
I'm not setting up the meeting. We're talking about our plan.
All right. Well, let's get to Glenn then. Either way, that just indicates we've got a lot of meteorologists here to give you the very latest on Irma. Glenn, what is the latest?
Well, the 9 a.m. Information just coming in now, so I was waiting for that. It looks like the eye, lower Florida Keys in the eye of Irma. So that is a landfall in the lower Keys there. And let me zoom in just quickly here, and I'll show you that on Max 2. There we go. Right in that area there. So it's making landfall, and apparently it says they're in the eye. So that is a landfall there, and we'll get the official report coming out in just a few minutes, and obviously the position has been updated as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the wider view of Irma here, and let me put this into motion for you. Here you go. You're checking it out on the satellite view. Still an absolutely tremendous storm, a Category 4 hurricane. We watched it intensify this morning as it moved out over that open, warm water between Cuba and the Florida mainland. And that is just an area where we constantly see storms like this quickly intensify. The water's just so warm there. One thing that's happening, though, is there's a little bit of wind shear coming in from the west here, and that may inhibit it from being able to strengthen even more as it moves up toward the west coast of Florida. But even so, it's a Category 4 storm. So even if it doesn't intensify anymore, it's still an incredibly powerful hurricane. Underneath the cloud cover here, you can see all that rainfall data coming in. But it has just been such a powerful storm throughout its lifespan. And it did lose a little bit of strength over Cuba yesterday and got down to a Category 3, but then right back up to a Category 4 as it moved out over the open water. There's Key West there, Lower Keys right there. So the eye moving over there, there's Big Pine Key, there's Marathon over here. So making landfall right in this area here and going to move to the north. And when you look at this stretch of rainfall that comes all the way from our viewing area, a little north of our viewing area, all the way down to the eye here, we're talking a couple hundred miles at least of rainfall that's still going to move up through Florida throughout the day today. And there's a look there. There's Key West. Oh, wow. There's Key West right there. Look at that. Look at these trees here. And mind you, Key West was actually on a little bit of the weaker side of the storm there, but still the eye wall was in the Key West area, at least the western edge of the eye wall in the Key West. There's a reporter right there getting ready to go out. Here's a quick look at the latest 9 a.m. update. Still a Category 4 storm, still moving north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. Pressure 929. We see the pressure drop a little bit so far this morning. Expected to stay a Category 4 as it moves up toward Fort Myers. And this is 2 o'clock here, so it's still south of Fort Myers, but it could be right up in the Fort Myers area as we get to about 6, 7 o'clock tonight, maybe 5, 6, 7 o'clock tonight, right in that area there. Regardless of landfall here, it is just going to push a ton of water into the Fort Myers area, and still the wording is that the storm surge there is going to be catastrophic for the Fort Myers area, and water could go inland 10, 15 miles or more as the storm moves up past Fort Myers, and then up toward Tampa and St. Pete as at least a Category 3 hurricane, a major hurricane. Again, the potential for a catastrophic storm surge here, and then up toward the Panhandle as a Category 1 hurricane, eventually losing strength into a tropical storm, and then kind of falling apart here as it makes its way up to Kentucky and Tennessee, and a little bit of a mix in Arkansas too. But it is just a big storm, and it's on the move. We're looking at, do we have a press conference to go to? Is that where? Okay. We'll come back to me in just a minute. We have to go for breaking news here.
Lucie County, so that's where we have over 800 county residents are standing water.
All right, we've got just a little bit of an audio problem as we're trying to connect with Martin County Emergency Operations as they give their 9 a.m. update. We've got that squared away. Okay, let's listen in here again.
Monitoring the situation. Crews are on standby to restore the power as soon as storm conditions will allow. Martin Health System is fully functional. They are on lockdown, which means facilities are closed to people coming in and out for safety concerns. However, they continue to work with fire rescue to accept patients. Our units will continue to run calls as conditions allow us to do so. Currently, right now, fire rescue is still running calls. So if you have an emergency, call 911. If you just have a question about the storm, call our information line at 287-1652. Now I'd like to introduce our County Administrator, Taryn Krista.
Thank you, Chief. Martin County systems continue to run efficiently and properly. Our storm preparations have positioned us well to respond to any issues during the storm and work toward restoration as soon as our conditions allow. Our Martin County shelter update is that our general population shelters are at 17% capacity, and our special needs shelter is at 49% capacity. Our Martin County utility water service has been turned off on Hutchison Island as of 6 a.m. today. We expect to turn the water back onto the island at 10 a.m. tomorrow, given conditions allow. A boil water order will be in effect for 48 hours once that water service is restored. Residents will be notified as we move through this process. As nearly 200 members of our emergency management team work around the clock to manage issues associated with this storm, our communication efforts continue to push relevant information to our residents through our various media channels, including our 3 scheduled press briefings like this one this morning, which occur at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6:30 p.m. These briefings are available on our government TV station, Channel 20, on Comcast, and to local radio and broadcast media. We also provide regular updates on Twitter and Facebook. Our public information staff is doing a great job manning our line 24 hours a day. So as Chief said, that number is 772-287-1652. If you have any storm-related questions, please call that number. For the most up-to-date information, please follow us again on Facebook at facebook.com/Martin County Board of County Commissioners and on Twitter at Martin County Gov. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our Sheriff, Sheriff William Snyder.
Madam Administrator, thank you so much. From a law enforcement perspective, last night was quiet for us. We feel very blessed. I don't think our call volume was hardly any more than we would have on a normal rainy night. Obviously, the stronger winds, whatever winds we're going to get, will be later today. We have had some electric outages, which brings me to the important point of traffic. If you don't have to be out on the road today, today's a great day to stay home, play Monopoly, play with the children, watch the weather, but if you stay off the road, it really will help us. If you have to be out on the road, if you legitimately are checking one of your businesses, then perhaps remember this, that if there is an outage, I just came through Willoughby and Indian is out, big intersection. If you come to an intersection, there's no light, stop and treat it as a 4-way stop. So the person to your right has the right of way and it works around like that. That's the way it works. We have extra patrols out, so if you're off the roads, it really helps us to keep an eye out. The less traffic, the easier it is for us to monitor. We have a lot of people that did leave, and so we have houses that don't have occupants. We have businesses that don't have the business owner, and that's always an invitation for those that would profit at somebody else's misfortune. To that end, as I came through the intersection this morning, I noticed at Kaner Highway, one of our patrol units was actually up there watching the exits. So if there's anybody who's watching us from Dade, Broward, or down south that thinks coming up here would be a good idea to take something because it's easier, I promise you this, you have my word, you will find more law enforcement and more obstructions to your intentions than you would normally find. So stay away from Martin County and leave us alone. Our special needs shelters are open, and I'll just share this in closing. I know during a hurricane, it's kind of intimidating. We're frightened. Some of us, some people get frightened, when the electric goes off, but we're there. The firefighters are out there, the deputies are out there, and just an anecdote. Last night I stopped at the special needs shelter at Doc Anderson School, and I saw the firefighters and our deputies helping elderly people, some people on oxygen, very frail people. They were being so gentle, Chief. I wish you could have seen it. You probably have. And it made me think of Abraham Lincoln, his speech that time about the angels of a better nature. And I think that's what we saw last night, the angels of our better nature. And so in times of crisis, although there might be some, and that's my job, to stop who will come and profit at our loss, the overwhelming majority of Martin County people are acting responsibly, and our first responders, I told the firefighters last night, And I told those deputies, you're my heroes. You stayed all night in a special needs shelter, frightened people, bewildered. Their lives are tough on a good day. And sleeping on a cot in a school was not their best day ever, but we were there with them. So to all of us in Martin County, I compliment you for your efforts and for your cooperation. Ma'am? Yes, if there are any questions?
Yes. I was, kind of curious. Any hiccups as far as managing the storm?
Question is, has there been any hiccups in managing the storm? Actually, the storm is managing us very well and keeping us on our toes. I think this, we don't spike the ball ever here, but if this is, if the worst is just before us and it's not as bad as they thought. So if we get 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts, we'll have power outages, we'll have some debris. We have mobilized, I think the Madam Administrator has mentioned it several times, this has been a phenomenal tabletop exercise for us in preparation. And God forbid if we were facing the Category 4 that we thought we'd get, we would have been ready for that. So, yeah, with the storm's managing us very well. Thank you.
With Martin Health, it was on lockdown, it is on lockdown, but patients are able to come in and out. But do you need fire rescue to escort the patients in and out for that?
Currently, right now, it's my understanding, yes. Fire rescue, they work with us to get the patients in, and we don't want people on the streets right now if you don't need to be. If you do have an emergency, call 911. We'll come to you. We're running calls. There shouldn't be any panic or hesitation at all. If you need us, call. You know our number.
Did we have any tornado warnings last night?
Many.
Okay. And then also, do you have a list somewhere of what roads are flooded, what intersections in this area?
To our knowledge, we've been monitoring them. We do have access to some of our major intersections, and we've not seen any major flooding here. We do know that they are experiencing significant flooding north to us, but we will continue to monitor. We know where our low areas are, so obviously when they start getting a little bit of accumulation of water, we'll be able to respond as quickly as we can.
All right, thank you. We'll be back at 1 p.m.
All right, so apparently short and to the point today. Sheriff, Snyder telling people to stay off the roads and, as he said, jokingly perhaps, but with an edge, just stay out of Martin County if you don't have any business there today and tomorrow.
Reminding everybody that law enforcement is out in full force. Also, keep an eye out for intersections that the signals have been down. He mentioned one that's fairly well known and fairly frequently used, Indian and Willoughby, use it as a four-way stop. But this is going to be more and more prevalent throughout our entire viewing area this morning as these bans continue to come through. We do have crews all over the state, and we've got them keeping an eye on everything as Irma has now made landfall and is continuing to kind of head up the West Coast and hug the West Coast. We'll keep you updated on that, but we want to keep it local for right now.
In fact, real local, right outside our TV station, News Channel 5, Sam Smink is joining us now to let us see what the conditions are right outside our door from the second floor balcony. Sam, how's it looking?
Well, John and Roxanne, the winds just can't make up their mind right now. 1 second we'll get this sharp gust of wind that almost feels like it's going to blow us over. The next minute we're seeing what we're kind of looking at right now. We do have the wind going a little bit, as you can see in the trees, but it's picking up and then it's slowing back down. It's this ebb and flow. For a while there, about 20 minutes ago, the rain was just coming down in sheets. It was going diagonally right onto us. We had it was actually bearing down on this roof right now. It kind of scared us, made us jump for a few seconds. The wind has been going back and forth all day. I know I mentioned before that at one time we actually had to close the balcony door because of the fact that this wind came right through and knocked down some ceiling tiles. So that's a little look of what we're seeing now. It's not recommended to be outside. We know we have the curfew anyway, and you're not supposed to be there. But at any time, this wind could just come through and knock you down. They were actually making a joke that maybe they should put some sandbags on my feet, because at one time I moved forward. But it's really, like we said, it's not making up its mind right now. 20 minutes ago, it was going right through. The wind was beating down on us along with the rain, and then now it's relatively calm. Obviously not as calm as we normally see it, but you can tell from the trees that it's not exactly doing their sharp gusts right now.
Well, it's just like you said, the key two words there are right now, Sam. Yes, get some sandbags on your legs. We don't want to lose you. You're so tiny. We don't want you going over that balcony. So.
No, absolutely. And you know, again, she pointed out it comes and goes, and we've seen that whether we're on the Treasure Coast or down in Boynton Beach. It's been like that.
What were you pointing at, Sam? Can you tell us? Is there something coming?
I don't know if you could hear, but there was just a howling wind that just came through as you guys were talking to me. So that's what we're talking about. The fact that it's not making up its mind. It's getting really strong at one point, and at other points it's calm, and you wouldn't even think there was a storm out there except for the gray clouds.
You know, okay, Sam, thank you. We'll check in with you. We also saw that in Boynton Beach. We had Tori Dunnan getting just pummeled and could barely stand up. And then we saw calm, but it's been that way in Boynton. And right now we want to talk to Stephanie Slater, who is the PIO for the Boynton Beach Police Department. Stephanie, good morning.
Hi, Stephanie.
Good morning.
Describe your situation there. What's it looking like, and what are you doing right now? Earlier, you were taking us on a little cruise in the patrol car. What's happening now?
Yeah, we were out earlier. However, the conditions have continued to deteriorate, and we've got live power lines that are down along Congress Avenue, north of Woolbright Road. Our fire department was on scene to secure them for a little bit, but now we've put up caution tape and had to leave the area. So those are still live power lines that are down in the roadway. We are also starting to see some flooding in the 1900 block of North Seacrest. We had a power line that was catching a tree on fire. It ended up not happening, but it was starting to spark on Northeast 28th Court. We have power outages and debris all over the roadway. So we just want to remind people that there is a curfew in effect. It is not safe to be outside right now. There is no good reason, to be out driving. We understand there may be some cabin fever, but even walking down your neighborhood, now is not the time to walk outside and assess damage. The conditions are going to continue to deteriorate.
And that's so important to reiterate in just what you've described to us now. And then you say conditions will continue to deteriorate.
And
so
they look pretty bad now in many places.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to remind people that there is a curfew.
Stephanie, are people heeding the curfew? Because it looks pretty much like a ghost town, the picture that we're showing right now at Woolbright and Congress.
For the most part, they are. When we were out driving earlier this morning, we did see some people walking. And again, we understand that people want to get out and see what's going on, but, there are trees that are falling. We had 3 large trees that came down on High Ridge Road, and, our fire department is working to now clear the roadway. But trees can come down at any point in time, and if you're walking down the street, your safety is in jeopardy.
That's a very good point, because the ground is saturated, and a lot of those trees, it doesn't take much, a couple of whipping winds, and down they go.
And you've pointed out too, Stephanie, that you've got reports of power lines down, and with the rain falling and the wind kicking up and trees continuing to come down, or even branches, it's very, very dangerous for anyone to go outside. And you said it, it's so key what you said. It's only going to deteriorate. So you really do want people to stay inside, and then they're safe.
Yes, and we would encourage people to continue monitoring our social media. We have been posting photographs and video as the weather permits us to go out. And also, we will continue to post updates. The city of Boynton Beach also has a public information hotline that the phone number is 742-6921. So we would ask that people, if they have questions, do not call 911 with your questions. Call that public information hotline with your questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, very much. That's really, really good advice and a good thing to bring in right now. And we appreciate your information. Please stay safe, and our best to everybody in Boynton Beach as they ride out this weather that's moving through. That was a really key point. Don't call 911 with questions about when's my power coming back on.
Right.
They're very, and that's just something we normally do. We get anxious and then you just want 911. Call 211 if you need someone to talk to. It's the helpline in the Palm Beaches and Treasure Coast. They want to talk to you. They want to get your information if they can help you, or they'll help direct you to information. We'll be Facebooking Live throughout the afternoon, so you can check in with us as well. Also, there's a hotline in Boynton Beach. Let me give you that number again. If you're in Boynton Beach, to call 742-6921, area code 561.
Yeah, stay off the 911, stay off the streets unless it's an emergency. You're not going to get hassled. If you're going somewhere because it's an emergency or you need to get to a safe location, do it. But there's a picture on your screen right now of a tree that toppled over. Again, the ground is so saturated that any significant wind will knock down some of these large trees. That even if they've got good roots and deep roots, they will come down, which is a scary situation.
It's an old Florida home and it's
Right?
an old Florida tree, but this storm just was a little bit too much, and we didn't take the direct hit. The direct hit landfall was made, was in the Lower Keys between Marathon, well, actually a little bit west of Marathon, in like Cudjoe Key to the Lower Keys to Key West. So Irma has made landfall. The storm is starting to trek up the west coast with Fort Myers in its sight and Tampa in its sight.
All right, and it's going to be significant when it gets over there. Shallow area, they're going to have a big rush of water over there, and they are preparing for the worst over there, the same as we were earlier this week, and we still can't let our guard down because of the situation. It is what it is right now.
All right, we showed you the tree on that house and beside that house in West Palm Beach. It's sort of the scenario that is shaping up throughout the viewing area right now as these bands come through, these feeder bands come through with a high winds. And one instance, Stephanie just talked about it, some trees down throughout Boynton Beach.
WPTV News Channel 5's Andrew Ruiz is near a local elementary school that is seeing some damage. Andrew?
We're getting one of those feeder bands here in the Boca area at Calusa Elementary. You could tell that winds took down these tree branches. It's not only here, but also close to the front of the school, and then over here by the playground as well. Let me take you over here so you can see it. They're just snapping right off of these trees. These trees have been here for quite some time, but because of the force of the winds from Irma, you can see that it's just taking out the tree limbs as well. We've seen several tree limbs in the middle of the road, and that's what's making it unsafe, including that big tree that is still blocking Military Trail. In Boca Raton, I'm Andrew Ruiz for WPTV News Channel 5.
All right, we've got Alyssa Hyman on the phone with us. You saw her braving the elements. Well, thankfully, she's out of the elements right now and is joining us on the phone.
All right, Alyssa, what is the situation right now?
Well, actually, right now we are just getting some more rain. We're taking a look at that intersection that was so severely flooded here in Fort Pierce. It's Virginia Avenue and Oleander Avenue. Since we've last spoken to you, we've seen at least two of the cars that were stranded here in these floodwaters at least get some relief, obviously, either been towed or their owners came back out and were able to get them working again. This intersection is still very severely flooded. In fact, it looks like the water has gotten even higher since we've been out here, and obviously you can see the wind pushing the water west even towards us. We actually had to move our car to make sure we were safe and got to higher ground because with the rain continuing to fall, there's no telling how high this water could get. So we just wanted to make sure we could move our car before it was too late for our car, knowing that we saw so many other cars just stuck in this water. There is still one car that seems to be stuck, but we've, on a positive side, we've been seeing a lot of people come out here, ask us if we need help. We're communicating with them. A lot of law enforcement officials stop by, check on people, even tow trucks that aren't supposed to be out here and working or haven't had a specific call, just coming out to check on people, saying, hey, do you need help? We're just checking on people, not necessarily because they've been called. So I think that's sort of a positive look at things out here, is that there is a sense of community, people coming out here checking on everybody. And as you can see, this rain still coming down. It really hasn't let up much at all since we've been out here, and we've been out here since 7 this morning, and we've just been seeing heavy rain bands come in, really strong wind. It lightens up a little bit at some points, but it just continues to be extremely strong. You're about to see, I think, one car. It's a sheriff's office vehicle. So this is one of those cars that obviously is made for higher water, that can brave this kind of water. There's a car, though, that is trying to go through it. I don't know if you guys can see that. I know there's a little bit of a delay, but then here's this sheriff's office vehicle that's an armored kind of vehicle that obviously can handle these kind of waters. But there is a Jeep out in the middle trying to get through. I hope it does make it, because we have seen those cars stall out. This is the exact reason why we got out of the way. Here's another one, it's a truck. I think the truck is probably going to handle it better than the Jeep. But again, this is what we're seeing. Fort Pierce, Oleander Avenue, Virginia Avenue, just a completely flooded intersection. Back to you guys.
Well, those people are taking big chances driving through there.
Just crazy. And I am glad Alyssa did mention that, because as we introed you, Alyssa, we failed to say one of the basics of journalism, where you were, as if everybody knew. Alyssa is, as you can see now, in Fort Pierce on what's on the TV. But if
Oleander in Virginia, which looks more like a lake.
Yes, if you're listening to us on ESPN 106.3, the flooding is massive at Oleander in Virginia, in Fort Pierce. I know a lot of you in Fort Pierce can't really get us on the radio, but elsewhere in the viewing area, just to describe it to you, it's very deep water. Alyssa talking is very deep. So